remote folks, I'm just getting to know a couple people here locally. So if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and mute your side, mute your mic. If you have questions, you can speak up after you unmute, obviously, or type in the chat area on the right. In a minute, we'll start. It's all recording right now. It's going to be posted on YouTube. It's also live on YouTube. I think that's how it works. And then it'll be posted later on YouTube. But just like I'm going to talk to a few locals. Here? Elsie. Are you from locally here? Caltech? Canada. Even better. Wow, cool. Thanks. How about that? Wow, word gets out. Yeah.
My name is Smith, also from UOT.
Oh, okay, cool. Glad to have you. And I know all of you guys. Back in the back? Oh, I know you. That's right. Okay. Yeah. BYU? And I've seen you. You did. You don't have to tell people that. This is my first time.
No, I
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Well, good to see you again. And then everybody else, I know they're from CASE, Western Reserve University. They're some of my students in structural equation modeling out in, it's the Weatherhead Executive Doctorate of Management program. And so they're here to hopefully review everything. Good, we have a few more coming. Let's see, somebody just, Milagros, she's not here. Let me get the Hangouts working, get everybody hooked up. Let's see, Milagros. And now she's calling. Right. Hello? Yes. 120, not West 120, but just regular 120. Yes. See you soon. Bye. Okay. Sorry to get things all set up. Let's see, Gaurav is here. Nazim is here. Yay. Okay. This one. Oop. Okay. Okay. We have 4 of our remote folks. Hopefully the rest join. Hopefully. And then we'll get started. Hopefully everybody noticed there's power under the desks. You can hook up your laptops if you need. The wireless, I think, is BYU guest. Shouldn't be anything difficult signing in with that. Hopefully you have the software up and running on your laptop. If you're a Mac, it has to be on Windows side. Still not getting, oh, let's see. Suzanne? I'm missing Suzanne. Good, okay, yeah. I've invited her a couple times. Let me try one more time. Suzanne. There she is. Right. Hello. We're just getting set up. Sit anywhere. Philip too. Can I just drag them into this? That'd be cool. I don't know if that worked. Suzanne, drag. I don't know what that is. Well, we'll see. Hopefully they'll join. I guess while we're waiting, bathrooms are down that way. water fountains that way and that way. If you go down this way to the end and turn right, you'll see water fountain and vending machines. Oh. We're having trouble. Come on. All right. Was this Suzanne? Yeah. He's trying, yeah. What if I go like this? Is that going to pause the settlement? Maybe. Yeah, no. Take me there. Alright. Okay. Am I still? Yeah, I'm still here. Okay. We're still broadcasting. Good. Oh, somebody just took a picture. Okay. Alright. Alright. Well, we got to get started either way. I'm just texting her. If they check the top right of their browser window, that should say invites or new conversations. I've just texted it to her too. So. She can see Philip. Yes. Well, hang up. Yeah. Try calling me in Hangouts.
I don't know if you got it. Okay.
This is why we practiced yesterday, and it worked yesterday.
Okay. All right. They're gonna keep trying.
All right. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to move on. Alright. Hi, so good to see you. Oh no. Okay, will you be back? Okay. It's all being recorded. Yeah. Alright. Well, we're gonna get started. Hopefully these folks who are trying to call me remotely, it'll work out. If not, let me see. If all else fails, watch on my YouTube channel live. Okay, that's almost correct spelling. Okay, we're gonna have to get started anyway. Let me pull up the slides. The slides are available in Dropbox, so you're welcome to follow along on the slides. I'm not going to spend a heap of time on slides, hopefully. Hopefully I'm going to spend most of the time in software. We'll see how it works out. That's really not that bright. Oh, yeah, right there? Okay. How about that? There we go, that works. That's pretty great. Is that cool? Is that right? All right. Oh, and I should share my screen with remote folks. Okay, remote people, I'm gonna share my screen with you. Speak up if you need anything. There we go. Here we are. Speak up if you need anything. Yes, that's good. Or text in the chat window, and I'll catch it. If I don't catch it immediately, I'll catch it later. All right. So, thanks for coming. Couple disclaimers. statistics is enormous. I got a call the other day. Oh, let's stay back here for remote people. Statistics is an enormous field. The other day, a university called me and asked if I would come do a similar boot camp at the university. And I said, sure, you know, just replicate what I'm doing here. And then they sent me a list of statistical procedures that they wanted me to cover. And that's like calling up any old doctor and saying, hey, can you come do brain surgery on me? And it's a really big field, just like any field. And I like to compare it to a golf course. I used to work on a golf course. We used to aerate the greens. And my knowledge of statistics is like one of those little aeration holes on the statistics field of golf. And so if you ask me something that's outside of that very minuscule expertise I have, I will lie through my teeth or tell you that I have no idea. Probably I'll just tell you I'm not sure and ask if anybody else knows. But there are some very fundamental things about statistics that I'm not an expert in. I'm an expert in structural equation modeling with SPSS and AMOS. And other things I'm not so expert. So I'll tell you the truth. If I don't know, I'll tell you. Parking, I don't love cars. It's parking if you have a car here and you didn't send me your license plate and you want to park next to the Tanner building, send me your license plate number and its state, where it's from, and your name, and I'll send that to the parking office, and they'll let you park here today, tomorrow, and the next day without giving you a ticket, which would be great. I have to tell you, disclaimer, in January I was diagnosed with an autonomic nervous system disorder, which makes it so that sometimes my heart doesn't work properly, which is very unfortunate. So if I happen, they're calling. Let's see, if I happen to have some struggles, where are they coming from? Here we go. Can I drag them? No. Sorry, guys, it's not working. If I happen to start struggling with my heart rate not being normal, if I get dizzy, I might have to lay down. Don't worry, I'm not dying. If I do die, call 911. If I do pass out, there's a very, very minuscule chance I'll pass out. Usually I can feel it coming on, I'll just lay down. If I do pass out, don't call 911 unless you can't provide me after 2 minutes.
Is there any emergency response phone number for the people at the university here?
Is it 4419 222? It's 2222.
That sounded like you're totally making stuff up.
No, it's 422-2222.
We'll Google it.
Yeah, 422-2222. Lots of twos after a 4. 801 is the area code. Anyway, but yeah, for real, hopefully I won't have any issues. But this is my first major engagement after all this started, and so we'll see how it goes. I had to stop teaching this semester because of this issue. I also have feet problems. That's why I have a cane. I have tumors in my feet that won't go away, despite all of the surgeries. Okay, so the plan is today some basics in EFA. Tomorrow, confirmatory factor analysis. There's a lot of stuff in confirmatory factor analysis to do. And then on Saturday, we're going to test causal models, do mediation, moderation. And if there's extra time, hopefully there will be extra time, we'll do some one-on-one with everybody, with anybody who needs it. I need to get a feel for, I guess, how much stats background we have. I know most of you, but go ahead and answer anyway so we can get a feel for the whole group. Who has absolutely no statistical background, period? Don't be shy. Okay, good. That helps. Just a wee bit? You feel a wee bit confident? Oh, this is great. Oh, okay, there we go. Good. Okay, thanks for being honest. Okay, and then I know several of you have taken SEM classes. Who has not ever taken an SEM class? Okay, so we'll focus there. So if I go too slow, I'm going to wait for you guys who have no background to tell me to go faster. Otherwise, I'm not going to look at the guys who already, to everybody who already knows this stuff. If this is too slow for you, for some of you it would be mind-numbingly slow. For others it would be mind-blowingly fast. Feel free to do email, take a nap, do whatever you need. I'll work on your own work. Really, you're not offending me. Get up, walk around. so you don't fall asleep if you don't want to fall asleep. But really, it's going to be kind of slow for a few of you. So we're going to do mostly demonstration and discuss, and then if we need to go back to the slides, we'll go back to the slides. I have a few slides that I really should cover for understanding the concepts before we move on to the procedures. But this workshop is mainly procedure-oriented, understanding how to do it and maybe why to do it the way we do it. I hope, how many brought their own data to work with? Yes, that's awesome. That's so great. I want you to follow along while we do it. You're welcome to follow along with your own data. And I'm happy to help you troubleshoot your own data. If it gets to be where I'm troubleshooting too much and teaching too little, we'll have to figure that out. Yeah. Yeah, oh, there's a printer if you want. I'm not a big fan of printers, but there's one on the 5th floor. That way. If you go up that elevator, if you go up the, huh? Yeah, so what you do is you put whatever you need on a thumb drive, and then walk that way to the elevator, go up to the 5th floor, and then as soon as you exit the elevator, turn left. And it's there in the middle of the hallway on the left. 5th floor, the copy center.
So they have computers there, you can even just pull it up on Dropbox there.
Yeah.
Use their computers.
I think it costs a few cents a copy or something. Sorry I didn't get hard copies. I'm so not a hard copy kind of guy.
James, are you in the slides folder?
I am in the slides folder.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on Dropbox. Yeah, all these slides are on Dropbox. I will probably be changing some of these slides tomorrow and the next day. So I won't change today's today, probably not until lunch. But these are stable for now. You won't be able to save over the ones in Dropbox that I haven't given you rights to, but yeah, do drag it on your own computer. Yeah, on Gasconation, the YouTube channel. It should be broadcasting live right now. I'm so sad it's not working. We'll have to try again in a bit. Maybe at our next break I'll try again. You guys beat me to the next point. Ask questions anytime. Stop if you need. And if you totally got this and you have nothing else better to do, please help people around you. That'd be great. Some resources. Is anyone here not familiar with StatWiki and Gasconation? Good. That's great. So these are two resources that have had surprisingly large viewership. We have millions and millions of views on these two resources. Because they rock. Not as famous as my daughter yet. Dang it. She has more hits than I do on YouTube. A lot more. Anyway, so that's the whole reason I made this YouTube channel, is to get more hits than my daughter. And it's failing. I should have picked a better topic. Anyway, so StatWiki, it's the wiki I use to log all this stuff. It has a bunch of, I should just show you real quick. Let me go to StatWiki. ColabCreations.com. Here we go. So it has a bunch of stuff: data screening, EFA, CFA, SEM, PLS. I have a bunch of stuff on PLS I'm not going to cover during this workshop. And then some general guidelines, which I find very helpful, and we might even use these. So there's an example of a quantitative analysis using SEM and how to write it up, what references to use. I think there might be references, maybe not. Steps for formulating a good quantitative model. An order of operations when conducting a quantitative analysis, and how to structure a quantitative research paper, which is very useful for those starting out in academia and research. Anyway, it has a bunch of good resources, and it has links to videos. If you go to, for example, here, EFA, there's a video tutorial, how to do an EFA, and that links back to the Gasconation channel, which is here. Here's the YouTube channel, and we have over 100 videos here on SEM and statistics. So use those if you need, if you like. Dropbox folder, everybody should have had an invite to the Dropbox. New people wouldn't know. Does anyone need access to that? You probably email me and let me know you need access to that. If you need it immediately, also tell me. Yeah, you want it right now? We're good? Okay. 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 and then printer on the 5th floor east side. Okay. This is what we're covering today. Hopefully, we should be fine. During this boot camp, I'm going to cover this model. So we want to test this fairly complex structural equation model. It's really a path model, but path modeling is part of SEM. And this is just data I collected a couple years ago. It's about how students use Excel. Very basic data. We have 381 users. It's how they use it, the outcomes of their use, and something about those users, so we can understand better what leads to things like information acquisition, decision quality. Really important dependent variables. And we're going to do things like mediation, and there's some interaction moderation, some multi-group moderation. We're going to control for some stuff. So this is a fairly complex yet typical structural equation model. That's what we're going to build up to and test on Saturday. And let's get started. So everybody should have some data, at least the data I gave you. If not that, then, oh, that's desolate. If not that, then your own data. Oops, here we go, Dropbox, SEM Bootcamp, data. This is the data I'm going to be using, this Bootcamp original data. Please don't just double click it and open it. Go ahead and drag it onto your own computer and open it. Again, you can use your own data to follow along. And we're going to go like this. I have a bunch of slides on missing data and outliers and things like that. We're going to go through it in SPSS and then talk about it as we go. And if we need to review, we'll review. So, does anyone want access to the data and doesn't have access to the data? Great. Okay. I better make sure everybody on Hangouts is happy. Looking good. No texts. Oh, Millie joined us. Yay. Okay. Okay.
What's their folder for the file?
It's called, it's in the data folder. It's called bootcamp-original.sav. Okay, so that's an SPSS file. And the first thing I do when I drag data off of Qualtrics or wherever I'm getting my data, usually I use Qualtrics for survey data collection. First thing I do is I get rid of all the nonsense columns, which I've already done to this one. Figured that was pointless. You could figure that out. But the next thing you want to do is see if there are useless rows, useless responses. Was there anyone who didn't respond to everything, or mostly everything? Now the general rule is if somebody didn't respond to 10% of the survey, you can't really use them. Some people say 20%, but I like 5%, especially if you have a lot of data or a lot of responses. We have 381, I think, so that's a lot. I can afford to drop 1 or 2 people and not create any sort of response bias. So I'm going to go look and see if people didn't respond to a lot. Typically, the way I do this is I go to Excel. I'm going to just copy all this. Let's see. The best way. Click here, Control-A, Control-C, wait till it thinks about it. SPSS is kind of slow. And I'm going to go to Excel. And there's a really nifty function called count blanks. If I just paste this in here and go to the end, I'm going to, I should stick a new row in here just to make sure we don't mess things up. Side note, if you're pasting back and forth from Excel, don't sort. Don't sort your data, or else you'll unhinge it. Because you didn't sort in SPSS, but you did sort in Excel, then you paste it back, it's out of order. Unless you copy all of the data, like I just did. If you copy everything and then paste everything back in, you're fine. Yeah, or create a record number and sort by that, and as long as you don't delete, yeah, that works. So I'm going to create a new column called missing, and just use this cool thing called count blank. Equals count blank. And that'll tell me how many missing values there are in each row, which is useful. Count blank. What do I want it to count blanks of? Well, everything except the ID, but that, whatever. That's fine too. So count blank the whole row. Control-Shift left will get you to the far left side, typically, unless there's a missing value. And again, if I'm going way too fast, feel free to stop me. And then in Excel, for those who are not familiar, you can put your little cursor on the bottom right little handle and double-click it, and it goes all the way down. 4223908. Hello. Yes, this is. I'm getting your license plates covered. Oh, probably a stolen vehicle. Roy's pretty shady. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it. You know, let me give it to you right now. Before I. Oh. Sorry, Roy. They can't find your license plate number. Let me give it to him for a sec. There we go. Okay, license plate number is X87 4RJ. Oh, thank you. Yes. All right, thank you. Bye. Okay. All right, they're not going to arrest you. They couldn't find your license plate in the registry, so they thought it was stolen. Okay, here we go. Back to it. Okay, we were in Excel. Sorry about the delay. Didn't want anyone to get arrested. Yes?
So the data you're using here is like survey.
It is survey data.
However, as a beginner and in the SEM space, certainly doesn't have to be survey data.
No, definitely not. I should give some, I guess, some minor qualifications. For what we're doing, for the most part, you want latent constructs, latent factors. You want variables that are comprised of many little things that are, so survey works out really well because you ask sort of the same question about one thing many times. So you want a latent factor that is manifested through several indicators, observed indicators like survey questions. And you want those indicators to be what we call reflective, meaning they're mostly interchangeable items. So they mean the same thing. They're not different dimensions of something. They're all manifestations of the same thing. And if as long as your data looks something like that, regardless if it's survey or something else, it's fine. Yeah. We won't be covering data mining techniques or anything like that, though. Yeah. Oh, do you want it? It's on my website if you want. I'm just using regular Excel, just a blank workbook right now. But yeah, the Excel stats tools package is on the wiki, where we just were right here. Excel stats tools on the left. We will use that later. Okay. So what we want to do is find out if anybody, any row that corresponds to a survey responder, in our case, if any row is missing more than, I would like to say 5% of the data, but 10% is something you can use. We're missing one case here, 1, 1. Those aren't a big deal. 1, 1, 1. Not a big zeros. There was a 2 up there. Not a big deal. 1, 1, 1. Whoa! These ones at the bottom. Here we go. 88 and 97. That's a lot of missing data. You can just eyeball it here. I mean, that's a lot of stuff missing. So we can't really use these. For the ones that are missing just one value, we can do what's called impute. We can sort of guess what they might have said based on some other stuff they said or what other people said. But when you're missing this much, you can't just impute or guess all those values. That's a bad idea. So I would just highlight those 2 rows and delete them. They are gone. Those were really the only 2 rows that had a lot of missing data. Now, where I'm getting my data. Usually I use Qualtrics for survey data collection. First thing I do is I get rid of all the nonsense columns, which I've already done to this one. I figured that was pointless. You can figure that out. But the next thing you want to do is
That's me talking to me.
What? Turn off your mic on Hangouts. That was weird. Okay. That was really weird. Okay. So we got rid of people who didn't finish the survey. The next thing you need is people who didn't pay attention during the survey. Because sometimes you offer like an iPad as a reward or some sort of gift card, and so people will just take your survey. And if you're using Mechanical Turk, Amazon Mechanical Turk, there are people who game it, and you can catch them, but we should still look. Now, my favorite way to catch people who are not paying attention is just to stick what's called an attention trap inside your survey or whatever method you're using to collect data. So often in surveys we use what's called a Likert scale. Please answer on a scale of strongly disagree to strongly agree. And so what I'll do is about 2/3 of the way through, or about 1/3 and 2/3 of the way through, I'll stick a question that says, if you're paying attention, please answer somewhat agree or somewhat disagree or something like that. And then if they answer those incorrectly, obviously they weren't paying attention. Unfortunately, I didn't do that with this data set. So we can't rely on that. So the next best thing is to look at reverse-coded questions. So there are some, I was talking about latent constructs. Now you capture those latent constructs with multiple items that all sort of mean the same thing. Like if you're talking about being hungry, you ask things like, agree, to what extent do you agree with this item? I'm hungry. I could really go for some food right now. I really don't want to eat right now. The third one is reverse-coded. If they answer 5, 5, 5, if they answer 5 to all 3 of those, obviously they're not paying attention because one of them was the opposite thing of the thing we were asking. So that would be an ideal thing to do here. Unfortunately, I also didn't use reverse-coded questions because I hate them. Reverse-coded questions almost never work in latent constructs. They almost always fall out. I need to sit. But there are other ways. So another way, and the way we're going to use, is you just look at it and see, are there patterns like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3? Yes?
Sorry, if you did use reverse coding, how would you then check that?
Okay. For the remote folks, the question was, if I did use reverse-coded questions, how would we then check for people not paying attention? What you would do is you would highlight those ones that were reverse-coded, perhaps in red or something like that, and then you'd look to the one next to it, because it's probably part of the same construct, and you'd see if there was much of a difference. Did they answer 1 on this side and 5 on this side? If so, we're probably okay. If they answered 5 and 5 for both, we're probably not okay. And that person's entire row is probably invalidated. I would check at least 2 reverse-coded questions, though, to ensure that this wasn't just an overlooked error. Yeah?
After this step with reverse-coded question, when do you reverse the code back so they're all facing in the same direction?
Good. So yeah, you want to do this obviously before you re-reverse, is what I call re-reversing. To re-reverse an item that is reverse-coded, because you have to do that. If you have reverse-coded questions, you have to re-reverse them so that they're in the same positive scale as all the other items of that construct. What you do is you do that after this, after you've cleaned it.
After this,
Yeah.
before you do any further steps.
Yeah, and what you do is just subtract that value from 1 more than the scale size. So if you had a 5-point Likert scale, you'd subtract whatever values from 6, and that would re-reverse everything. That would make all your strongly agrees now strongly disagrees in terms of the value. But it would also make it so that the I'm not very hungry right now means I am very hungry. So it's re-reversing. And you have to do that before you do your EFA or CFA or anything like that.
And you do that by just creating a new column.
Yeah. Just create a new column in your data set to represent that new value. And then you can just replace the old values with that new column. Okay. Next, we want to see if anyone wasn't paying attention, just looking at patterns. So this is a lot of data, and typically it takes some time. We're not going to look at all of them. I have some Confederates in here down at the bottom. So this guy right here, the last one, not paying attention. How do we know? He answered 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3 for everything, including his age, I believe. So obviously not paying attention, and even if he was paying attention, he's useless, completely useless to us, because in order for variables to be useful, they have to vary, and this person has no variance, and so they are a completely useless respondent, and so we can feel justified in deleting them. So I've just deleted that row. What about this one next to it? Let me go. Here we have 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4. It's possible. It is possible, but very improbable. What I would do, just to make sure, because you never want to lose data that you could keep that could be valuable. What I would do is go look at the questions that they were responding to and ask, is it rational? Is it possible that they could have answered this way and this that way? And if it's just not, or if it's like this and it's clearly a pattern, and after they hit the 5s, they went back to 1s, 1, 1, 1, 1, toss them out. Yes?
This is an interesting example. When we're in SPSS with our survey data, it's grouped by items that are intended to be within construct.
Yes.
Not grouped by the order of the questions on the survey.
Correct.
So if somebody went through the survey, regardless of the question, and physically wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you would only be able to detect that by retaining
The ordering.
the order,
Okay.
the order of the items. Is that a good practice?
Okay, the question for remote folks is oftentimes we randomize the item order in our surveys, and then when we receive the output from Qualtrics or wherever, the output comes out in the same order for everyone, not a random order that they received it. And so you wouldn't be able to detect. Suzanne's trying to call me. Just you wouldn't be able to detect this pattern.
But even in the case where you don't randomize every survey, but rather your one survey is randomized, right?
Right.
So your one survey that you submit has these items in a, not even a random, but a kind of a mindful order.
Yes.
But you don't put all the, whatever your constructs are, all together
Right.
clearly. So it seems to me that I would be tempted to record
The order.
The order, so that I can quickly scan for
Patterns.
geometric patterns
Yeah.
in the answer.
Yeah, so the question again is if you retained the order that participants did answer your questions, would that help to see the patterns? The answer is yes. But ideally, just avoid all the hassle and just stick attention traps in there and then randomize. And then you don't have to worry about all this nonsense, because this is hard, eyeballing it, and you have to make judgment calls, which are not always good. Yes?
I have a question about reporting.
Mhm.
So when you're dropping someone, should you put it up in the write-up first?
Yes. Okay, the question is, when you drop somebody, should you record what you've done? And the answer is yes. You always must report how many responded total, how many you dropped, and for what reasons. If you drop somebody due to disengagement or being unengaged during the survey, you just say that. We had 5 people who showed clear unengaged patterns of responses. And so they would have corrupted your data. Let's see this next one here. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Oh, these are the same. All right, yeah, same issue. I'm going to delete this one. The next one, 1, 1, 1, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2. This is there's clear conscious effort going in here, and the rest are fine. I've already checked those. So, but that's the idea. Best prevention: use attention traps. If you forgot, look at reverse coded items. If you don't have those, look for patterns. If you don't have that, hope for the best. Okay. Here we go. So now that we've cleaned this data this way, let's put it all back in, except that missing column. Don't need that. Control C. Whoa, not that one. Trippy. Delete all of my data from SPSS. No, I didn't sort it. Well, I'm going to delete it anyway, because I deleted this. I already copied it all over, so I can delete it all here and just paste it all back. Deleting. All cases removed. Thank you. And then I'm going to paste all that stuff from Excel back in. It's just to play it safe since I took it all out. It's thinking about it. Please work. Still thinking. There it is. Okay. SPSS is sometimes finicky. You might want to just double check that it's all there. If SPSS didn't bring a value in, it'll have a question mark. Oh, look at all those question marks. It's still thinking. Give it a sec. There we go. It's all in. Cool. Okay. Next thing we need to do, now that we've looked at respondents, we need to look at variables to see if we have missing data. Why do we care? For every missing value you have in a variable, that's one data point you can't use. If you're trying to see how this variable's variance is associated with this variable's variance, and this variable doesn't have a value for one person, essentially your sample size has been reduced by 1. And also there are some procedures in AMOS, the software we'll be using, that will not let you run the analysis if you have missing data. You have to have a value for every variable and every respondent for that variable. So we're going to really quickly go to Analyze, Descriptives, Frequencies. And that's going to tell us which variables have missing values. And then I'm just going to dump everything in there, throw it all in. So you can hit Control-A in there or hold Shift and do it all. You can also resize windows in SPSS. Seems rudimentary, but it took me a year to figure that out. So there we go. And we're not going to change any settings in here. We can look at those later if you want. We're going to look at this first table. I just hit OK. And the very first table that pops up is this frequencies table. Easiest for me, I'm just going to copy it and again go back to Excel. It's just a little easier to work in Excel. Create a new tab and paste it in there. And we're going to look for anything that doesn't have anything that does have missing values. Here's the missing row. So 0 missing, 0 missing. These are all 0 missing. So that's good. Keep looking. There's a 2 missing. I'm going to get rid of everything that's not missing anything. Oops. Zeros. Oh, 2. So keep that one. Zeros. Zeros. Whoa, that one's missing a lot. I think that one asks if you've ever killed anyone. Something like, it's the social desirability bias scale. It asks the weirdest stuff, like, do you ever get revenge? It's weird stuff like that. I just got to go see what that one is. What is this? 46 missing. Social desirability 7.
Why does social desirability matter with Excel use?
Because we're asking things like self-efficacy and performance, and if somebody's like, yeah, I'm awesome, everything's good, then they might inflate their responses, even if they're not awesome and good. Social desirability 7. What does this say? There have been occasions when I took advantage of someone. Yeah, so a lot of people are going to say, I'm not answering that. Yeah, there are a bunch of weird ones. I like to gossip at times. I deliberately hurt someone's feelings. Yeah, these are sensitive questions. Okay, so these are the ones that have missing values. We need to go impute the ones for which we're concerned, the ones that are key to our analysis. So if we go back to this model here, not all of them are key to our analysis. Let me go look back. We have ease of use, playfulness, a bunch of social desirability, which is not key to our analysis, so we're not going to impute those. So it's actually just playfulness and ease of use. And we use both of those, right? Playfulness here. Oh, we don't even use ease of use. Excellent. So just playfulness. Number 4 is missing 2 values. So we're going to go replace those. We go to Transform, Replace Missing Values. And then it was play for, right? Play for. And we're going to, since this is on a Likert scale, 1 to 5, ordinal, strongly disagree, strongly agree scale, we're going to use the median, because there is no such thing as a 3.7, which is what you'd end up with a mean if you used a mean to replace the value. We're going to use the median, so it gives us a whole number. And we're going to use the median of nearby points. And we're going to use all the points in that whole column. So every response, we're going to look at the median of everybody else's response and just replace the missing values with that. And what's that going to do? For those of you who are familiar with the central limit theorem, it's going to do nothing. except maybe slightly dampen the amplitude of the effect we observe when trying to predict that variable, predict with it. If that didn't make sense, don't worry about it. It's going to have very little effect if we impute it with median. If we happen to impute 30 missing values or 10% of our data with medians, that starts having a real effect, because then it shows, let's say we're trying to predict something with playfulness. Well, playfulness is always the median so much of the time, and so there's very little variance when you start replacing a lot of values, and so that'll dampen any effects you see in your models. Anyway, I'm going to replace it directly. It added this _1. I'm going to get rid of the _1, so it just replaces the actual column and doesn't create a new column. You have to hit this button here, change, or else it won't do anything. And then you have to hit OK. Change existing variable? Yes. So just replace that whole column. Cool. And that's the only one we need to do. If you have more, you can do more. I'm going to move forward, though. So we've talked about missing in rows, missing in columns, unengaged. There's one other thing. It's not in the slides, but I think I should talk about it. If you're collecting data over a long period of time, and you have to remind people to please go fill out your survey or please respond, then you need to do a test between those who responded first and those who responded only after reminders. This is called an early versus late response bias test. I'll show you how to do it. This wasn't part of the plan, but this will be relevant to a few of you, I'm sure. You would go to Analyze. There are a few different ways to do it. We're going to do it using an ANOVA. That's in the compare means one-way ANOVA. So again, this is if you have, there are actually a few different reasons you'd use this. If you had early versus late people responding, or if you had multiple types of people responding. Let's say you had firefighters and policemen responding to your survey. Well, you need to see if they responded in roughly the same way. And so you need to do what's called a homogeneity of variance test to see if the variance distributions are, or well, if the distributions of the variables are roughly the same between groups. I don't have an early versus late, so I'm going to do it with gender, just as an example. So you go to one-way ANOVA, and you pick your factoring variable. Ours is gender for now. And you just throw in all the variables of interest, which I should probably limit this to right now. Sorry, I'm going to stop, go back. Before we do this, I'm going to get rid of all the variables I don't care about, because it'll make life so much easier for the next little bit. Adoption, and I'm in the variable view tab down at the bottom. Adoption, we're not using this one. Anxiety, not using it. Are we using atypical use? We are, atypical use. So we'll keep that one. I'm going to delete these. And then comp use, I think we're using design expectations fit. We're not using efficacy, not using. Ease of use, we decided we're not using. Yes. Enjoyment we are using, so I'm deleting these. Multi is a failure. That is a difficult variable. Repurchase intentions we're not using. Skill acquisition we're not using. We are using social desirability bias later. Delete. So I'll keep it. System satisfaction we're not using. Info acquisition, decision quality we are. Unfaithfulness we are not. And usefulness we are. I guess if you're following along with me, I probably went a little fast. Get rid of all the variables that are not relative to this model, relevant to that model, excuse me. I'm left with enjoy, playful, social desirability, information acquisition, decision quality, usefulness, and then all these other little single item things down at the bottom. And now I'm going to save as something else so that we don't mess things up for later. This is the bootcamp trimmed save. Okay, now that's saved in the Dropbox. So if you want to just pull that file down, if you're following along with this data, you can pull that file down, and you'll have the exact same file as I do. So that's a good waypoint. We're all on the same page. Okay. Now we were going to go do a Levine's test. So, do I need to wait? Yes. Yeah. So down bottom, there's this thing called variable view, and then there's data view. That goes to our data, and there's variable view. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Should I proceed? Okay, I'm going to proceed. Yeah, we're going to take a break here in a wee bit, and then I'll catch up. But if you want that data set that I just saved, it's on Dropbox now, if you're online. So you can pull that one down. Okay, so again, if we have multiple types of responders, male versus female, firefighters versus policemen, early responders versus late responders, we might need to do a homogeneity variance test, which is in the compare means ANOVA area. Analyze, compare means, ANOVA. And again, all this is being recorded, and you'll be able to see this and hear everything, and it's going to be posted on YouTube. So if you feel like you're falling behind, there's a way to review ANOVA. And now, I only have the variables left that I'm interested in, so I'm just going to paste them all in, except gender, because I'm going to use that over here. And I'm going to throw this to the right. Gender is going to be my factoring variable. So that's what that means. A factoring variable in a difference of means test is it's the variable that has groups, and that group is going to be what we're going to use to compare different sides of the data or different sets of the data. And what you need to do is a post-hoc. Is it post-hoc? No, it's contrasts. Not even that. Bother. Options? Ha! Here it is. Homogeneity of variance test. I use this very infrequently, obviously. So this homogeneity of variance test says if they responded in similar ways on our survey. Essentially, if they understood the questions the same way. So that's in the options menu. Homogeneity of variance test. Continue and OK. And this will tell us if it's significant in this SIG column, that means they are different, and that's a problem. So in our column here, we're looking again for less than 0.05 is what we would consider significant here. And we'll talk about why later, I guess, but most of you probably understand that already. We have a difference on social desirability bias 2, but really we don't care a lot about that. That's just going to be something we're going to use for extracting method bias later. Ooh, age. Huh, there's a difference in age. This is an artifact of BYU data. For those of you who are not familiar with BYU and LDS culture, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints culture, young men typically go on what's called a mission when they turn 19. Now it's 18 actually, and so they defer school for 2 years, while the young women will typically go when they're 19 or 21. 19 is the new age. But at the time of collecting this data, it was age 21, and so the women typically will have a lot more school under their belt than the men at that age. And so typically the women at BYU are younger than the men because the men come after their missions, they come into their schooling. So like I was 22 when I started my freshman year. So there is a difference in age, but that's just an artifact of collecting data at BYU. And there's also a difference in... Yeah, it would. Yeah, so typically the females would be younger than the males. Yeah. And then the last one is playful 4. It's not significant 0.05, but it's getting close. We're not sure why that is, but since it's just one variable and it's not at the 0.05, we're saying that's fine. If you had something here that was very significant, what would you do? Probably you'd remove it and hope it's not your dependent variable or something like that. Or you'd find a way to justify it. But typically, if you have a variable that doesn't pass this test, it's going to cause you problems later. So, good. It's not the ad hoc, it's in the options, and it's the homogeneity of variance test. Yeah. The ad hocs are pretty cool, though. We'll see them later. Okay. So that's that. Let me get back on track. I wasn't planning on covering that, but I think that's very important. Let's see what we've missed. Missing data. We've talked about that. We've talked about this. I guess an important point. Missing data is a big deal. Let's say you're collecting data on gender, easy to understand, and you leave this as an optional question, and gender is a very important variable in your model, and only 50% of the females answer the gender question, but 95% of the males answer the gender question. You now have you can't guess gender or any categorical variable. Let's say you're using industry or religion or marital status. You can't guess marital status. You can't impute that with the mean or the median. It makes absolutely no sense. And so for every missing value you have in a very important variable, especially categorical variables, which you can't impute, it becomes a problem. Essentially, you're dropping your sample size every time you're missing a value there. So that's a bad idea. And more sample size is usually better. We've talked about this. Talked about this mostly. Talked about this. Okay, so yeah, let me go back to that slide. What do you do if you're missing data? There are three options. Option one is only use complete data rows. If you have a lot of data, this is usually okay, but there's a rule, and it's not in the slides, I think. If you're missing more than 20% of your responses, so you collected 400, let's go with an easy number, 1,000 responses, and 200 of them didn't finish the surveys, you're going to start to wonder, well, is there something different about the people that finished than the people that didn't finish? And that becomes then a confounding variable. Because what if the people that finished are all happy, positive people? And the people that didn't finish are really productive, busy people that, you know, they're different, right? And so you enter a bias in when you start deleting more than 20% is the standard cutoff. So you can use known replacement values. This is harder. Typically, you go find someone who's answered similarly to this other person, and it's very difficult. And then you replace to match that other person. You pair them up. That's very difficult. What we did was we calculated a replacement value, and we used the median for ordinal, discrete, ordered values, Likert scales. You would use the mean for something like age or income that's more continuous. That's how you do it. But prevention.
James, in terms of
Yeah.
age, if you have buckets of age,
See, that's different. That's more ordinal. My recommendation for age, this is off topic a bit, but always collect the exact age. You can always bin things later. You can't unbin things. If you asked if you're between ages 5 and 10, you're never going to know if they were 7. But if you asked how old they are, you can always know they're between 5 and 10 if they were 7. Yeah. So always get the richest data possible, and then if you need to abstract from there, that's fine. Best method prevention. This is worth noting. Short surveys. You've all taken surveys. Long surveys, you quit. You're tired. You're fed up. And psychologically, fewer pages on a survey is less taxing than more pages, even if it's the same number of questions. If I have 100 questions and I have them on 10 pages, then when I hit that next button on the bottom of the first page and it jumps a tenth, I'm like, I'm done. This isn't worth it. This is going to take me forever. But if I finish a long page of questions and it jumps a quarter of the way on that progress bar, I'm like, all right, yeah, it'll take me another 5 minutes. It's all right. And it's the same number of questions. So my suggestion is use fewer pages. Less than 80 questions is usually ideal. If you don't want missing data, make sure things are easy to understand. Pre-testing is critical. For those of you who are collecting data, make sure you do what's called a talk aloud exercise. You read your questions to someone and see if they go like this, and it make a funny face and don't know how to answer. And if they do, then you need to reword that question. There are other pre-testing methods we aren't going to cover. Forced completion, this is debatable. if you force people to complete questions before moving on, they'll either quit or they'll just say, oh, whatever, 3. So you're taking a risk if you force people to complete a question. You end up, there's a risk you end up with muddy data. You can bribe people. This sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Usually works for students very well. So that's what I usually do. I say everybody's going to be entered into a drawing for an iPad or $250 Visa gift card or something like that. Digital rather than paper, obviously. Just for your own sake. I don't know if there are still people who do paper surveys. It just blows my mind. Yeah. And so sometimes you can't. Yeah, sometimes you can't do digital unless you have an iPad. But no, sometimes you can't. I was doing a study with someone who's studying gerontology. He was going to homes for the elderly, and you just got to do it on paper. You just have to. But it's definitely easier if you can go digital. Important. People don't think about this. Put the dependent variables at the beginning of the survey. The things you want to predict and explain, put them at the beginning, because people quit at the end. If you just want to know about a dependent variable, stick it at the beginning. And then put sensitive stuff at the end. Like the social desirability bias questions about do you like to gossip and kill people? I put that at the end so that people don't see that at the beginning and get scared off and quit. They've already given me all the other data. If they don't answer those questions, fine. So, some methods. Okay. We talked about this.
James, quick question,
Yes.
please. So, in terms of your data, before you move it into the EFA, if you've collected more data than you need in terms of controls or moderators that are not in your model anymore, can you just hold them to the side and just, so the data you're moving forward is excluding that even though you picked it up?
Yeah, the question for those remotely is if you can, first of all, can you collect more data on more constructs, more variables than you are actually going to test? And the answer is yes, please do, because usually you have this grand theory in mind when you're collecting data. If you only collect data on that grand theory, well, what if one of the key constructs fails? You're stuck. You just spent a ton of money and time on something that failed. So usually you get backup questions, backup variables, and also interesting side paths. Let's say this theory works out. Well, then we want to know, well, does it differ between men and women? Does it differ between old and young? And we didn't collect that data. Well, we're stuck again. So for a lot of you, you're doing a thesis in a master's program or in a certain kind of doctorate, like the doctorate of management, and then you might go on for a PhD. But you don't want to have to collect data twice. Collect it all at the same time. No. But don't make your survey too long. Brilliant. Yes. Yes.
But on that, is it appropriate to take some existing constructs or theories and only survey for certain attributes of them, right? Leader member exchange, although that only really has 3 trust, obligation, and respect, but it is conventional, I'm asking, to maybe pare down some of the items so that you're only looking for the behaviors that you're most interested in.
So this is a really good question. The question is, a lot of existing scales are ginormous. 40 items for one construct. Yeah. So let's say you have just 5 variables you're interested in, and each one of them is a 20-item scale. Well, then you're up to 100 already. Can you cut and pick and paste and just take parts of them? And the answer is yes, with good logic and rationale. My recommendation whenever doing a survey is 5 to 8 items per construct. If you break 8, then you're going to have a really long survey. If you have less than 5, then you're going to fail because oftentimes you end up dropping 2 or 3 items from each construct. Okay. Good questions.
James,
No, please do. Yeah, Michael.
So if your DB has just 3 variables, and typically you use a theoretical basis for developing that scale, then you're sort of in trouble. Because you've used something that's been used historically. Okay. And it's only 3 items.
This is on the flip side. The question is sometimes existing scales only have 2 or 3 items. This is particularly true in finance and other financially related fields. Accounting. Can you add to those? I have. Again, academia, we get to the social sciences, is a field where if you can make a good case and argument, a lot of people believe you. And we feel it's justifiable if it is logical. And so if you say, well, this scale only had 3 items to begin with, in order to cover my bases, I added 3 more that seemed very applicable, and I pre-tested them, and I pilot tested them, and they worked, then you'll be hailed as a hero. Yeah. And we'll now use the DESA scale instead of the Gaskin scale from now on. You'll be cited relentlessly. Yes. Okay. This, I hope, is review. Normality. We didn't talk about this. We can go look at it. But you should probably check out the normality, the normal distribution of your variables. We'll do it a couple times real quick. But a lot of the methods we use in SEM are based on regressions. And regressions, and also the covariance matrix, which we use a lot in SEM, assumes normal distributions. And so if you have non-normal distributions, this affects many different things. It sways your estimates. It inflates things. It deflates things. It's a problem. But it's a bigger problem because of, I'll explain. Give me a sec. No, I'll explain it now. We typically use in survey data Likert scales, ordinal scales. Strongly disagree, strongly agree, things like that. Often to never. And they're short scales. They have 5 discrete points. You can't really transform those to normality because there are only 5 values to work with. And so transforming does nothing. So that's a problem. So when you're stuck with non-normally distributed variables, what do you do? Huh?
Well, we'll look for a theoretical reason for it. Might be one thing to do.
Here's what you want to do. Prevent it. Sample size hides a lot of yuckiness in variables. You can have a non-normally distributed variable, and if you have 1,000 of responses on that non-normally distributed variable, that will cover a lot of issues non-normality brings up. There's this scripture, forgive me, I'm in a religious school, charity covereth a multitude of sins, right? Sample size covereth a multitude of sins in your variables. Yeah?
And one of the things that can cover that, if I understand it right, is multivariate normality.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, yeah.
Non-normally distributed single variable within the larger
Yes.
multivariate normality. So is that a huge concern? And how non-normal does the data have to be problematic?
Okay, well, let's talk about it. The question was for remote folks, there's what we call univariate and multivariate non-normality. A univariate is for a single variable. Multivariate is for relationships between variables. For univariate normality, we look at these distributions and see if they're skewed or kurtote or something like that. For multivariate normality, we have to look at the relationships between these variables and see if they are weird. And to answer that, there's also very little you can do about multivariate normality, non-normality, because there will always be multivariate non-normality. What this means is there will be people who respond to your surveys, if you're doing surveys, who aren't going to be like the other people. For some people, using software makes them happy. For others, it makes them sad. And for the minority, they're going to be non-normal. What do you do about that? Nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
And we can postpone this if you'd like for another day, but related to this, I've seen some studies that have 3-point Likert scales,
Yes.
5-point.
This is relevant, yeah.
Commingled. And just at the onset, mathematically, 3 items can't possibly have the same variability that 8 items do.
Correct.
Therefore, I think that they'll get beat up when they get put into the construct boxing ring of our SEM. Can you comment on that?
Yes.
What do you do about that?
Okay, the question is using different sizes of scales, a 3-point scale, a 5-point scale, a 7-point scale. There are 10-point scales I've seen. They're binary scales. The issue is they have different potentials for variance. And so there's actually literature on this. There's a stream of research on this very issue.
Sorry, I missed it.
No, it's all right. And the conclusion is anything from 5 to 10, there's no difference. You can swap them, you can mix them, and if you have anything from a 5 to 10-point scale, you'll find there's sufficient potential variance. Anything less than 5, you start running into issues of you're not capturing reality. Maybe I'm not angry or happy or neutral. I'm somewhere in between there, right? You ever respond to a survey and you're like, well, none of them. I'm not any of those responses. I'm that one in between. I've actually circled 2 boxes before because I was somewhere in the middle of those. And that happens when you get a 4-point scale, usually, or a 3-point scale. So my recommendation is, if you can, use the same size scale. I like 5-point scales. A lot of people like 7-point scales. A lot of people are like, I don't care. I'm somewhere. I'm not. I can't differentiate between a 6 and a 5 on a level of agreement. I don't know. I'm 6. I don't care. And so you get some noise if you bump it up to larger scales. Usually the 5-point scale, people know, oh yeah, I'm very, or I'm somewhat, or I'm not. I'm somewhere in there.
So when you go one step further, and let's just say you've been given, I don't know, by someone, a study that has a 3-point item and an 8-point item.
Yeah.
And let's say when you go to your causal model, you're connecting those two. It seems to me that some of the factors we'll talk about tomorrow and the next day, variance explained and so on, that a 3-factor model to get all of its variance explained because there's not a lot of variance.
Right.
Versus an 8-factor construct versus an 8-factor construct, which has variance, from here to Vegas.
Right.
And how are you going to explain that with a lower order, if you will, construct?
Okay. Yeah. So continuing the question, what if you end up with an existing scale that is built on a 3-point instrument? What you do is rescale it before you send it out, and justify that decision. Say we needed more variance on this scale, which was originally 3-point. We set it to a 5-point scale. Yeah.
If you're doing variance testing, that's very robust against non-normal data. But SEM is much more sensitive.
Yes.
How non-normal?
Let's do that right now. Let's talk about how non-normal. Okay, let's get into SPSS. Excuse me. In SPSS, we're going to go look at analyze, descriptives, explore. Whoops. Analyze, descriptives, explore. Can you skip this step? The answer is no. You must look at the normality of your data. And in explore, I'm going to just go look at everything except ID, including controls, including gender, everything except ID. Everything that I'm going to use. I'm going to throw it in the dependent list. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. It's going to, yeah, we'll be all right. All right. Statistics, I would like descriptives, yes. Plots, I would like a histogram. I don't care as much about the stem and leaf. The normality plot, what does this do? It throws a normal curve on your histograms, but we can picture a normal curve. If you want it on there, you can check it. Options, don't worry about this because we already took care of missing data. Bootstrap, don't have to. We have quite a bit of data. Do we want both statistics or just plots? We want both, and we're going to hit OK. And it's going to think about it. You can see down at the bottom it's thinking, running, examine. So it's thinking, it's thinking. Mine's going to run particularly slow since part of my processor is devoted to recording all of this and conducting a video chat. Oh yeah, So it's analyze, descriptives, explore.
Guys, when I do that, you get like variables and different names of your questions.
Oh, okay, let me fix that for you. So the question is, what if you go here and instead of seeing, let me throw them all out here. Instead of seeing these variable names, you see instead this. Yeah, so you can right-click it and say display variable names. Yeah, or if you want to fix it permanently, go up here to Edit, Options, and say Display Names right here instead of Display Labels. You might also do this on the output. Make sure it says names and values instead of labels in the Output tab. And that'll make your output here a lot cleaner too. Okay, so we're going to go look at a few of these, not all of them because we have other things we want to do. Let's see, this is the frequencies. You can also minimize in here. Replace missing values, we did that. One way ANOVA, we did that. Explore, here we are. Explore. And this is just telling us summary stuff. This has things like skewness and kurtosis in it, which we'll look at later. We were looking at the histograms. Woo! There we go. Histograms. Normal enough? Maybe. We'll have to go look at the skewness. Looks pretty normal along this QQ plot. It's tight to the line is what we're looking for. Here's a box plot. We could look at outliers here. We should talk about outliers while we're talking about normality. We'll catch that in a sec. This is for the variable atypical use 1, I think. Atypical use 1. Are we mostly normal? I'd say yeah, probably. Mostly normal. We're just eyeballing it here. Really, if you want an empirical way to, ooh, that looks awful. This is atypical use 3. It looks awful on the box plot. Looks normal-ish on the histogram. A QQ plot is a normality plot that shows the distance from a normal curve. So if we pretend this straight line is a normal curve, where do the points lie? And they're almost normal. We'll see some that are not normal, probably. Let's see if I scroll down here. Just scroll in. You like that as a QQ plot? That's awful. This one's pretty normal. Another awful one, there's no normality here. If I go look up here, it looks normal. It's because it's flat. Okay, what we're going to do, instead of spending time looking at all these, we're going to go back up to that table, Explore, and in the descriptives table, what we're looking for is skewness and kurtosis. Skewness is, where is my distribution? Is it a beautiful normal curve, or is it pushed to the right or to the left? And the rules on this are you want skewness less than, there are actually a lot of different thresholds. The strict one is less than 1. That's very strict. And there's another one that says 2.2, and there's even one that says 10. And I'm preferable to the 10. But 2.2 is probably a good happy medium. So we're looking here in the statistic column under skewness for anything greater than 2.2, absolute value. So it could be negative 2.2 as well. And in the kurtosis, it's the same. But a caveat. With survey data, when you're doing Likert scales, again, ordinal, short order, 5-point scales, skewness is not as relevant as kurtosis. Kurtosis is how much variance do we have in our responses. If everybody responded with a 4, I somewhat agree, well then we have 0 variance and it's useless. It's highly kurtote is what we call it. But if there's some variance in there, the kurtosis value will be small and we'll be able to use it. It's more relevant, I would say, than skewness. So, yeah.
Did you also get high kurtosis numbers if, for example, on a 5-point Likert scale, responses were evenly distributed?
Flat. You'd have a low kurtosis scale. It'd be like 0. Yeah. All right.
So what do you want your kurtosis to be at?
Less than 2.2 on an absolute scale. So we're looking here. We have 0.8, point something, point They're all less than 1, which is good. Point. And again, it's these two right here, skewness, kurtosis. Looking good.
What about the ratio between standard error?
So that's another really strict version. I have that in the slides. You can do a ratio between the standard error and the statistic itself. And the cutoff for that, I think, is also 2.2. Is it 3? Something like that. Depends on who you read. Yeah. You'd think statistics would be cut and dry, you know, black and white. No, it's very artistic. At least statisticians like to think it is. Okay, we like to think we have more dimensions. These are all very good. Here's one, 1.3, not an issue, still less than 2.2, not an issue. These are all looking really good. Wow, actually, play. We're not really concerned about social desirability. We're using it as a marker variable later. Information acquisition, ooh, 2.03, that's close, but not terrible. 2.3, that's more than 2.2. Is it too much more than 2.2? It's pretty close. I'm not concerned about this one. If we only had 100 data points, I might be a little more concerned about this. We have 380. This is not going to be a problem. 2.3. You might flag it and say, hey, we had, you know, just for reporting purposes, we had 5 variables that were beyond the 2.2 threshold. Here's what they were, and here's how far beyond they were. And everybody would be like, okay, yeah, that's fine. All right, let's see. Looking good, 2.6 again. It's not that big of a deal. It's not that far. So I would flag it, report it, but I'd keep it. The question is, when do you throw them out? And I would argue, as does Klein, 2009, I think, that you throw them out when they hit 10. And that's really bad. Oh, here we go. Age. 9.2. Why? Well, we surveyed sophomores. They're all 21, 22 years old. So yeah, we're going to have a really curtote, zero variance kind of issue. What do we do about that? Age isn't a really critical variable for us, so we don't care. And it's expected, right? We expected everybody to be the same age, so no surprise, right? Can we then try to predict things with age? That might be a problem, because there's just not enough variance. So if we're trying to use age, I think we have age as a, where is it? Age is a control variable. So is it going to be a useful control? Not terribly useful, but also it's just a control variable. So it's, you know, it's the redheaded stepchild. We don't care that much. Sorry if any of you are redheaded stepchild. Okay. Let's see. So that's age. It's our biggest issue. Would you report it? Yes. And you'd say why? You'd say we sampled sophomores, and that's why it's bad. It's so curtote. And that looks to be the only major issue. Great. So we don't have any issues. If you had issues with kurtosis on a Likert scale, what do? You report it. If it's beyond certain threshold, either 5 or 10, depending on how much data you have, then you'd probably toss it out. And you'd say it's because it was too non-normal. We didn't have enough variance. It's going to be useless. On more continuous variables like age, income, we look at skewness. And again, same rationale. Do we throw it out? Yes, if it's beyond 5 or 10.
You're not trying to transform it into a log form.
You could with age or income, because you have a lot of different values for it. For something like a Likert scale, strongly disagree to agree, you can't, because you only have 5 potential values. And so transforming it does absolutely no good. But you could transform, again, age or something with a lot of values. Yeah. I don't cover transformations in the boot camp. If you want, on the StatWiki somewhere, no, not that one, this one, on the StatWiki, in data screening, there is my good friend Gary Templeton created a video on how to transform data, even radically non-normal data. We have a study going right now where we look at airline industry data, and this stuff is wildly skewed. I mean, just awful. The values aren't 10, the values are 1,000 in the skewness statistic. and it's just awful. And so he's created a method for normalizing even that kind of wildly non-normal data. So I recommend that video. Okay. Good. Outliers. Outliers. Is there such thing as an outlier on a Likert scale? Someone who says, I strongly disagree. No, that's totally valid. They can strongly disagree. That's fine. You have your own, agency. What about on something like age or income? Yeah, definitely there are outliers. If I'm looking at sophomores, students, and turns out, what's that guy's name who went back to school? He's a celebrity and he got his PhD in something. And he was in The Wizard of Oz. Terrible actor. Anyway, if he's in my class and he's a millionaire and he reports, he's got millions of dollars, he's obviously an outlier. Is he an outlier for my study? Well, only if income's an important predictor of in my model. If I care about income, well then, yeah, he's an outlier. If I'm surveying dogs and a cat responds to my survey, then that's bad, right? That's an outlier. If I just want to know about females and I get a male in there, oops, yeah, that's an outlier. But if somebody responds with a valid but different response, they're not an outlier. They're not an outlier we can get rid of. But we should check on our continuous variables if we have outliers. To do that, analyze, no, graphs, legacy dialogues, box plots. I'm sure there's a way to do it with their chart builder, but I hate that thing. I can't get it to work. So I'm going to use their legacy dialogues. You go to graphs, legacy dialogues, box plot, simple, and it's the second option here actually, summaries of separate variables. Define, and I'm going to throw in just the ones that might be an issue. I'm looking at age, education, and gender, I think it was. We have age and education. I'm going to throw into boxes. Gender, you can't really be an outlier on gender, especially BYU. There's a male or a female is what we gave them an option for in this survey, and so we won't have any outliers there. In fact, you can't be an outlier on a categorical variable that has discrete responses. So we don't need to look at that. Hit OK. And here are the box plots for, here we go, scroll down. Here's, I put them together. I should separate them, I'm sorry. Let's do it one more time. Let's do education first. By the way, there's the shortcut key here. If you click on this button, it gives you all the things you've done recently. So I use that one. It's a lot easier. Anyway, here's education, one at a time. We have mostly within 0 to 6 years of education. And then there's this person. Person number 31 has 11 years of education. I'm surveying sophomores. This is highly unlikely, but let's go check. How would we know if this person was erroneously entering education years? Yeah, let's look at their age. If they have 11 years of education and they're 19, unless they're Doogie Howser, it's highly improbable. So let's go look at the data view. Go to person number 31. Go look at age. Here is age. They're 19. So they've been in school since they were 8. Probably not, right? Probably if they're 19, they've had 1 year of school at BYU. This is likely a female, one, yep. I think that's female, because they would have gone to school first, or a male who's gone before his mission. What can I do about that? Should I impute it, or should I just guess? I'm going to guess. I could impute with the mean, and I'd end up with something like 3 is my guess, 2 or 3. I can go look at that box plot and tell you what I get. I'd get 2 is the mean. Or I could say, well, they hit 1, 1. They hit 1 twice. It's probably 1. They're only 19. It's unlikely that they have 2 years of experience. I'm going to say it's just 1. Executive order, executive decision. What do I do about that? I report it. Say we had an outlier. This is the case. This is what I did about it. If you want to play it safe for reviewers, just say you imputed with the mean, and then do it. Don't do 1 and then, yeah. Okay. Yes.
We don't check for outliers with entries and buckets.
Correct. You can't check for outliers on ages and buckets unless somebody reports that they were in the 65 plus range, and I don't know, they're also a second grader, something like that, or they have a PhD and they're in the 8 to 12 range. Okay.
Are you looking for outliers in this case? Really define erroneous inputs. Like
It's got to be erroneous.
Not to make any judgment.
No.
Of all 400 respondents, only 2 picked a 5.
Yes, correct. So, and I think we'll see that with age. This is a perfect question. So the question is, for remote folks, are we looking for erroneous people or anyone who's different? The answer is only erroneous. So we see here with age, we have somebody who's 9. Maybe that's that same person. No, it's numbers 370. We have a 9-year-old, but most people are between 17 and 26. And then we have some older people. The 9-year-old, is that likely erroneous? Yeah, that's probably erroneous. The 35-year-old, is that erroneous? I've had 65-year-olds in my freshman and sophomore classes. So I cannot exclude that person. Because unless I say my study is only about sophomores between the ages of 19 and 26. I can make that scoping decision, that's fine, as long as I theoretically justify it. But I'm not. So the 35-year-old, I'm not worried about. The 9 or 10-year-old, I'm a little worried about. Where are his parents? Let's go look at number 372. 372, where'd you go? Here it is. And go look at age. Here's age. They're 9 and they have 1 year of education, 3 years of experience with Excel, so they've been using it since they were 6. Man, this has got to be erroneous. I can't believe a 9-year-old. In fact, I know there was no 9-year-old in that class because I taught the class. I would have known if there was a 9-year-old, unless someone had their kid take the survey for them, which is mean, and they shouldn't have done that. So, yeah, I'm guessing they're 19. They do. There's a 3 and a 2 over here. There's some variance. I'm going to make an executive decision here, and since I could say that they were going to be 19, but it's a harder call than seeing a 1-1. I'm just going to impute with the mean for this one. So I'm just going to grab the mean here. Let's see, descriptives. I think I can get it in Explorer actually. So just grab age at the bottom. Here's age, throw it in there, and hit OK. And the mean of age is 21.6. So I'm just going to stick 21.6 in there. 21.6. There we go. And I'd report it. Okay, and that's it for outliers.
Can you just show me what you just did?
Yeah, sure. I was just grabbing the mean. So I did analyze descriptives, and any of these top 3 will give you the mean actually. And it's just reported in that table there at the top, mean 21.6. Okay. And then I went into the value and just typed there 21.6. Enter. Okay. So there's a bit of an ethical issue here. You can go and change all your data. Don't. People have done that and then they've been fired. Other people have done that and never been caught, and their studies are glorious, and we built many studies off of those studies, and they're all just false. So don't do it. It's bad. Anything you do to your data, you need to report. Even if you have to do a lot to your data, you just report it, and better safe than sorry. You don't want to lose your job. Okay, I'm going to save this so I don't lose all those changes. And then I think we're going to take a quick break after we just look to see if we covered these things. Outliers and influentials. We talked about outliers. We looked at that. We looked at that. Yep. And we talked about that. And that. Here's the slide with all the thresholds for skewness and kurtosis. I have a note at the bottom that Klein says you can look at greater than 10. That's 2005. Here's the reference in the notes section. So if you want that, if you have really kurtote data and it's not affecting your estimates, or if you have a lot of sample size, you're probably good. Okay, let's stop there for now. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to try to catch up with people online, and then if you have questions, I'll come around individually.
Just a fast question.
Yes,
So,
Michael.
in terms of a categorical variable, you talked about male, female,
Mm-hmm.
and you said there's nothing you can do about it. If you have one which is job role between boss and employee, and you know that the sample that comes back shows you 200, 200, and you know theoretically, practically, that's not possible to have 200 bosses to 200 employees.
Right.
What do you do?
The question is, what if you have, this is very specific, so I'm just going to repeat it. What if you collect data on bosses and employees, and it comes back, you have 200 bosses and 200 employees, so it's the same number for each, but that's obviously erroneous because you can't have 200 bosses managing only one person each. What do you do about that? Back to the drawing board. Yeah, and go talk to the managing director there and say, hey, look, your employees gave me bad data. Slap them on the hand. All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. If you would like some assistance, I'll catch up with you in a minute. I'm going to catch up with people online first. All right, online folks. Let's see. There were no texts. Does anyone online have a question? Hello. Okay. Or you're all taking a bathroom break. Okay. I'm going to try to... Oh, so far fine, says Edwin. Thank you, Edwin. Have you been able to hear all right? No problems? Oh, good. Good. Okay. I'm going to see if I can... Oh, good. Phil made it. I'm going to see if I can get Susan on. It looks like she's the only one missing right now. All right. Susan. Oh, there are things here. I see. James, do we have access to the Dropbox? Is that wiki? Ah, I need to send the Dropbox to everyone else. Yes. Oh, Warov says that. Can we invite? Oh, and Marcia got it. Good. Okay. Is it okay to have different Likert scale types for one? Yeah. So we talked about that. Good. James, is it okay to have? Oh, we talked about this, but I'll answer it again, Warov. Or Garov. The answer is yes, you can. You want to have. I like to standardize on a 5-point scale. But you can have, the literature says you can pick and mix 5, 7, and 10-point scales, and it makes no major difference, no significant differences. Once you start getting less than 5, so if you have a 3 or 4-point scale, that's bad. You don't have enough variance. If you have more than a 10-point scale, statistically it's not a major issue, but it introduces a lot of noise because the respondents typically don't know how to respond to something that's more than 10 points. I mean, am I a 12 or a 13 on the scale? I don't care. I'm somewhere in there, and so you'll introduce a lot of noise that isn't capturing the true trait that you're trying to capture, the true construct. You're actually just capturing an issue related to the method of data collection, method bias. If that answers the question. Okay. I'm going to try to get Suzanne on here, and if you guys have more questions, again, feel free to text them in here. This is great. Answer each other. Marcia, it looks like you got Dropbox, I hope. Okay. I'll be right there. I'm going to try to add Suzanne real quick. Okay. Roy, do you have Suzanne's number? I'm going to give her a call real quick. Poor thing. I feel so bad. What she has been? Oh, good. Good. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let me give her a call. Oh, wait. Wait. Oh, here it all comes. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, yeah. Sevens. Okay, Suzanne, I'm calling you. Hey, Suzanne, this is James. I'm so sorry about the... Oh, you're all watching it. That's good. Is that working for you, or do you want to try to join again our live hangout? It's all right. We're on a break right now. I sent another invite to you. I can also share a link. Okay. I know, it worked just fine. So if you go to your plus.google.com website, it should be on the right side at the top, somewhere on the right, to say Join Hangout. Okay. Yes. Hey, you joined! There's Suzanne! Woohoo! Okay, I'm gonna hang up. Oh. I'm sorry. Okay, well, we're good now. Okay, I'll be back. Bye. Okay, we have Suzanne. Yay! I'm gonna mute though. Okay, Suzanne, I'm gonna mute you. Here we go. Let's see. Suzanne, mute. There we go. Okay. I'll be back.
Turn it up.
Yeah, let me do a call.
We see you. On the other computer back.
Yeah. Okay.
You said we see you.
Holy cheese. Wait. Oh, here it comes. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was lost there. No, I'm sure also. So whenever you scale items, I mean, you could actually be
Never mind.
Yeah, so I have a question about the scale data. So let's say I have 5 data scale, and just one of them's not. However, the average is normal. The average, the scale overall is normal. Is that an issue? So that's the only thing. Yeah.
Sort of. Not as big. So typically what we do is there's a way to do a weight down.
It says analyze regression.
Two of the literature. The other two, I think, are good. And actually, I want them to read, and I think I can get rid of it. I think that's easier. So they just go look and see what my number is.
Yeah, so the answer is mostly this number. Roughly half is not answering that question. And if you can then that's going to ask you I looked at your missing values for so take care of those. Yeah, you could
We'll get started in about 3 minutes. So what are you Okay, let's get back together.
Okay, remote folks, we're going to get started again. Thanks for the break. Okay. Let me share my screen. Share. There we go. Look, that is so infinite. That is so amazing. All right. Okay. Hide. Okay. So we made it all the way to here. We did all the data screening. We're going to talk about some very basic statistics, which most of you are probably familiar with, but it wouldn't hurt to cover for those who are not, and also it would be a good refresher for those who are familiar. We're going to talk about t-tests, ANOVAs, correlations, regressions. And for those who are familiar with this stuff, feel free to ask questions or clarify anything stupid that I say. Like really, because I don't ever use t-tests. So I use ANOVA. All right, let's go do some. Well, actually, it'll be helpful to talk about this first, I think. Let me. Whoa. All right. So there are two different. There are a lot of different ways to test hypotheses with your data. One way is to see if there are differences in means. And I have an example here to explain it. Let's say we ask a bunch of people how important it is to eat your vegetables. It's a very important question in my household. I have 4 daughters between ages 18 months and almost 10, and all of them say it's not important. So we ask them on a not important to very important scale, and it's on a 0 to 5 scale. That's terrible. It should be 1 to 5. And we group them by age. We have 3 different groups of respondents. We have ages 3 to 10. These are kids. 11 to 17, teenagers and tweenagers. And 18 plus considered adults in most places. Although I'm going to Disneyland, and apparently my 10-year-old is now an adult. That drives me nuts. Okay, so the pink ages 3 to 10. Ages 3 to 10, they answered roughly 1.7 as a mean, right here. That's mean, 1.7 on a scale of importance. The ages 11 to 17 answered at about 2.2, and adults, believe it or not, still didn't say very important. They were somewhere in the middle of 3 and 4. The question is, are these groups different? And the way to test that is with a t-test or with an ANOVA. Since we have 3 groups, we'd use an ANOVA. T-tests are meant for 2 groups for the most part. And we can just eyeball it, really. If we have these perfectly normal distributions and we know where the means are, we can say, well, the mean of the pink group is not too far off the distribution of the mean or of the second group. And these means are very close to each other, and they fall within a couple standard deviations of each other. They're probably pretty similar. There's probably not a significant difference here. But between the pink group and the blue group, these are very different. You can see if you're looking at a normal distribution, you're looking at 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations. This is right along the 3rd standard deviation for the second group here, and it's not even in the distribution for that first group there. It's not in that blue distribution, the mean. So these are clearly different. We can go test this statistically. Let's go do an ANOVA in SPSS. I don't have that particular data. That's just a made-up example, but we can go do an analyze and compare means one-way ANOVA. You see all these t-tests. There are cool things you can do here with time-ordered data. Let's say you take things at time 1 and time 2. You can do a paired samples t-test for that. Let's say you have only 2 groups and you want to see if they're different. You can do an independent samples t-test for that. Anyway, we're going to do a one-way ANOVA because we have 3 groups. And we don't want to test all these things. We want to test just one of them. Let's say we have multiple groups like child order. This is whether you're the first child of many, you're an only child, you're the middle of many, or you're the last of many. Very relevant here in Utah. And let's say we look at something like enjoyment. Whether you enjoy using Excel based on your child order. Something like that. In fact, we can look at all 3 of these, whether you found it useful and if you made good decisions based on it. And we can hit OK. Ooh, I want to get means plots first. Go to Options, Means Plot. Those are useful. I don't need a homogeneity variance test in this case. That's in the options area. Somebody asked about post-hocs. I'm going to do post-hoc right now. This wasn't planned, but we'll use it. All these post-hocs do something slightly different, but very similar. I'm going to pick the Bonferronis. A lot of people like the Tukey's. I use Bonferroni. What it does a paired analysis. So oldest to youngest, oldest to middlest, middlest to oldest, makes all those comparisons. Hit OK. And here's what we end up with. The top table, the ANOVA table, says, are they different? If we think about enjoyment and we consider all these groups, are all these groups different at large? And the answer is yes. And for all of these, this sig column is a p-value. We went at less than 0.05 to have 95% confidence in these findings. The answer is yes. The child order makes a difference when you're asking about enjoyment and decision quality based on your use of Excel. Now, how different? Where are the differences? Let's see. This SIG column, this is the Bonferroni's test. This SIG column tells us for child order 1 versus child order 2, 3, or 4, are we different? Turns out child 1 versus child 2, SIG, not significantly different. Almost the same. No difference. Child 1 versus child 3 and 4, very different. And you see all these comparisons. And there are even plots for it. So if we look at average enjoyment, the only child doesn't enjoy using Excel. They're the lowest. Same with the first of many. Don't enjoy it. Whereas the last of many enjoys it quite a bit, and the middle of many enjoys it a lot. I'm a middle of many. There are 7 kids in my family, and I'm number 3. And I happen to enjoy using software quite a bit. If we look at usefulness, a similar trend. Only child doesn't find it useful. First of many finds it a little bit useful. Last of many finds it somewhat useful. And middle of many finds it very useful. And again, another similar trend for decision quality. Turns out the middle of many make the best decisions based on Excel use. This is completely fictitious. I made up these numbers because I'm the middle child. I had to make it like that. But you can see how it works. You could do this for industry, you could do this for gender, you could do this for employee position, you could do this for whatever you want, and compare people based on their average responses to something. Okay, that's that. And now a thought. Okay, before we talk about regressions and correlations, we have to talk about variables moving. Oftentimes we say variables move, and here's what I mean. So you have an independent variable, IV, and a dependent variable, DV, such as effort and performance. And the question we're trying to ask with a correlation or a regression is very different from the kind of question we're asking with ANOVA. ANOVA is, are they different based on this one variable and their category, so gender, child order. The question we're asking with correlations, regressions, is do these variables move together? When one moves down, does the other move down? When one moves up, does the other move up? Or is there some other relationship? As one moves down a lot, does the other move down only a little? Or do they move in opposite directions, right? Or completely unsystematic? That last one, let's see if we go here. This one, as effort moves down, performance moves up a bit. As effort moves up, performance moves up a bit. And as effort moves down, performance moves down a bit. I mean, there's no systematic correlation there. So we'd say in that case, they're not related, they're not correlated. But in these other examples, this is a positive correlation. They move down together, they move up together. And it's a very strong correlation. In this one, as effort moves down a lot, performance moves a little. Maybe a small correlation. Well, technical. Never mind. But you get the idea. And we have to talk, as long as we're talking about correlations, we have to talk about causation a little bit. And as you read the news all the time, reporters and journalists are terrible about causation. They have no clue what that means. There's this thing, I love this graph. The rise of autism is correlated with organic food sales. Almost a 1-to-1 correlation. It's amazing. There's another one I show in the class I teach in Cleveland. As the amount of CO2 emissions has increased, pirates have actually decreased. So we should have more CO2 emissions because that'll decrease pirating. There's a whole website devoted to this. The amount of cottage cheese consumed in Alabama is almost perfectly correlated with the number of deaths on rowboats in Alabama, and divorces actually in Alabama. So watch out for cottage cheese. Yeah. By an or, yeah. So yeah, or just don't live in Alabama. I live in Mississippi, so anyway. But correlation versus causation, make sure you think about it. Yeah, tornadoes and trailer parks. Let's do this. So if we want to look at correlations, we go to Analyze and Correlate. For now, we want the bivariate correlations. What is this going to do? It's going to make every paired comparison. It's going to, if we throw in 5 variables, it'll say how is variable 1 related to variable 2, variable 1 related to variable 3. So bivariate, I'm just going to throw in those last 3 here. Enjoyment, these 3, enjoy, useful, and decision quality. And it's going to be a Pearson correlation, two-tailed, flag significant. Those are all the defaults. And I'm going to hit OK. And that gives me just this itty-bitty little table here. And what this says is usefulness is positively, this number is positive, positively correlated with enjoyment. Decision quality is positively correlated with enjoyment. And it is significant. We have this double star here. Double star means they are significant at the 0.01 level, two-tailed. So we have strong correlations. The strongest correlation is between decision quality and usefulness. The more we find the software useful, the better decisions we seem to make with it. That makes sense. Now, bivariate correlations are the way a lot of studies were done in the past, and even in some fields the way they're still done. But regressions are a little better because they take into account joint explained variance. I'll show you. Should I talk about it? Let's do one and then I'll talk about it. Let's go do this exact same thing but use a regression. Analyze, regression. There's some cool stuff in here, but we're only going to use this little linear regression. But there's a ton of other cool stuff we can do in here. And if we have time on one of these days, I'll look at binary logistic and multinomial logistic regression, which will be applicable to a lot of you who don't have continuous or ordinal dependent variables. If you have a discrete, like did they buy or did they not buy? Did they graduate? Did they not graduate? Those kind of dependent variables. But we're going to look at linear regression. And as our dependent variable, let's say decision quality is our dependent variable. And let's look at usefulness and enjoyment as our independent variables. What do we want over here? Nothing. Just leave the defaults for now. So I've got decision quality as my dependent, enjoyment and usefulness as my independents. And that means these two are going to predict this one. I hit OK, and it gives me these tables. The top one, model summary, I guess it's the second one, tells us the R square right here. That is how much of the movement or variance in the dependent variable can be explained by the two independent variables, the predictors. And this is a literal percentage. So 32.7% of the variance in the dependent variable can be explained by the variance in the two independent variables. The adjusted R square, let me talk about it real quick. The adjusted R square says how much unique variance is explained, because perhaps decision quality, perhaps usefulness and enjoyment are two independent variables, explains similar portions of the variance, similar movement in that dependent variable. Well, what is just the unique variance that is explained, not the overlap? And that is 32.3%. So typically we use this, the adjusted R squared. This R here, I could say that's the correlation coefficient, if you're just looking at a correlation. The ANOVA table, we're going to skip that. We're going to go straight to the coefficients table. And there's a bunch of stuff here. I look at the standardized coefficients, beta. Beta is another word for slope or relationship. And so the standardized relationship, i.e. between -1 and +1 on a relative scale, we see positive effects. So as enjoyment increases, decision quality increases, but it is even more potent for usefulness. Usefulness has twice the effect of enjoyment. Whereas if we go back to that correlation table, do we see that? We see usefulness 0.472. No. Here, 0.535 for decision quality and usefulness, whereas enjoyment was 0.431. You don't see as great of a difference because it's just paired correlations in a correlation table. Whereas in a regression table, or regression analysis, you see their joint explanation of variance. So how do these together affect the dependent variable? Which one is a stronger predictor? In this case, its usefulness. And we can see in the sig column, that's a p-value. They're both significant effects.
Okay.
Yes?
So in order to do the regression part of this analysis, we would have to have computed our composites.
You're getting ahead of things. So the question is, would you ever do this with survey items instead of composite constructs or averages? The answer is no. No, you wouldn't. You'd want to have some sort of summative aggregate. You'd want some sort of aggregate variable first. So if I'm asking about job satisfaction, and I have 7 items that capture job satisfaction, I don't want to regress each of those 7 items with all my whatever other variable, my stress variable. I want to create some sort of average for those 7 first, or a composite, which I'll show you how to do later. And then we would use those composites to predict each other. Yeah.
So this happens after variance at the SEM stage.
Yeah, in terms of, like, you guys are doing a quantitative project right now, you would do this, you wouldn't have to do this for that project. But you would do it with composites and averages, not with items. Yeah. Yes?
So when we're reporting it, don't we report the unstandardized?
Depends on the field. Okay, so if you're in the social sciences, you report the standardized effect, because we want to know a relative scale. If you're in finance, accounting, marketing, physical sciences, engineering, you would report the unstandardized. The unstandardized effect is the exact slope. An increase of 1 unit here leads to an increase of how many units here. And so you want to know, yeah, if I increase whatever by some amount, how does that affect my bottom line in dollars? I want to know in relative terms. I want to know in dollars, how's that affecting my bottom line? And that would be the unstandardized effect. Whereas in social sciences, we just want to know amplitude-wise. We don't care what 1 unit of satisfaction is. That's kind of hard to empirically determine. We would just want to know relatively, is it a greater effect than something else? Yeah.
What does the beta difference look like if you draw it out?
Between unstandardized and standardized? Oh. For beta or for what?
For standardized versus unstandardized.
Oh, the symbol difference?
Is there a symbol
I don't know if there is a symbol difference.
Okay.
That's one of those things I don't know. I don't draw, except on this slide, I don't draw symbols.
Okay.
I hate this stuff. Yeah. It makes you look really smart and confuses everybody else, which means it's useless. Unless you're talking to other people like yourself. You know, if you're an engineer talking to an engineer. Nothing against an engineer.
But we don't talk to one another very
I know. That's why you use symbols, or maybe it's because you use symbols. So these do have their place. I don't find that they have a very strong place in SEM, and a lot of people disagree with me. So, but I do have one equation in all of my slides that I think it's important to understand, because once I understood this, it was like, you know, things made sense. So let's understand this really quick. This is the regression equation. You've seen this since middle school, probably. Y equals mx plus b, or ax plus whatever, or something like that. It's all the same, pretty much. The y is the dependent variable. The b, in this case, the b naught, is x, or is y when x equals 0. It's the intercept on the two-dimensional plane. The beta here, beta 1, is the slope or unstandardized coefficient of x, which is your independent variable data point. And then there's some error, and we're going to look at this on this slide. This will make more sense, I hope. I might even have a few of you on here. Nope, not today. Okay, let's say we were looking at the relationship between effort and performance, x and y. We asked several questions on our survey, and it turned out like this. Joe said he didn't have to try hard, and he still made some performance. Pat said I had to try out really hard, and I had great performance. Tom is a super stud and tried only a nominal amount and had great performance. That's how we read this. Now, in a regression analysis, you're trying to find what is the line of optimal fit, or the line of minimal error. What line fits these points the best? The error is the y distance, the vertical distance, not the angled distance, but the vertical distance between that line of optimal fit and the actual data point. The slope, that beta coefficient, is that line. It's the, I guess, the slope of that line. And then we talked about error. The intercept is just where that line crosses the y-axis. So that's how this relates to collecting data. These are actual data points from your survey. How they're answered 2 different questions and how those relate. And so we'd say Tom is a bit of an outlier, right? Whereas Joe's right on that line, Pat and Jane are right on that line. And this is the line that minimizes this amount of error from all observed points. And then squared. Yeah. So if we want to get technical, yeah. So we want the distance between all of these points, the vertical distance between all of these points and this line, to be whatever is going to be minimum.
I don't draw, except for this slide, I don't draw symbols.
That's me talking again. Who's not muted? Suzanne. I'm going to mute you, Suzanne.
She looked really smart and uses everybody else, which means that you.
There we go. She's muted. There we go. Okay. Love you, Suzanne. Anyway, so that's this equation. It's not that complicated. For y is going to equal wherever it crosses that line times the slope of the line, or plus the slope of the line times whatever they answered for x, plus some amount of error. So that's how that regression equation works. Important to understand. I will not have you calculating anything by hand or memorizing formulas, but I like that one. Questions? Are we good? Cool. You're all now brilliant. Okay. This, I hope, is pretty review. In social sciences, in all sciences, when we're hypothesis testing, we're talking about confidence in our findings, and we say it at the 99% confidence level or the 95% confidence level. In social sciences, we're typically 95, unless you're doing exploratory research, in which case it's 90, and so most end up being 90. And then in physics, for example, they have a 99.999999 significance. It's called 5 sigma. Not 6 sigma, it's 5 sigma in physics. So when they found the Higgs boson, there had to be a 1 in 1 million or 100,000, something like that, 1 in 1 million chance that it was chance and not real. That's how confident they had to be in order to say, yes, we found it. Whereas in social sciences, we are not that picky. We're cool if we're wrong 20% of the time. That's not, 5% of the time, 5% of the time. Even up to 10% of the time in exploratory research. We're looking for direction a lot of the times. So that's that. And just the inverse, when we report significance, we do p-values. You should know this. And it's just 1 minus whatever the confidence level is. So 5% or 95% confidence is a p of less than 0.05. In SPSS, it's usually not p, it's sig for some reason. Okay. Whoa! Yes! What time is it? Good timing. Excellent. Okay. So we finished all the content I want to cover for the morning, and that's intentional to finish early because I wanted you to be able to practice it and exercise in these exercises, or to let me walk around with you and help you catch up with your own data and answer your questions. For those who want, we have 8 minutes before half an hour before ending. How relevant is logistic regression to participants? Give me a show of hands. Enough of you that I want to show 5 minutes of it. So bear with me, those who are not as interested. Let's do some logistic regression, and then if you want, do this. If you don't want to do this, in order, I'm not checking, you're not turning anything in, but review stuff for your own benefit without me doing it with you so that you can feel confident. You can go back and watch videos and look at the wiki, and it'll help you through it, or if you get stuck, I'll answer your questions. I'd be happy to sit with you. The slides are yours. Let's go do some logistic regression real quick. So logistic regression, I don't know how many slides on it. All right, this was not intended except for after. So logistic regression is when you have a dependent variable that is not continuous or ordinal. There's no value meaning to the numbers that are in that variable. So for example, I have a variable called child order, right? Here's child order, and then there are numbers in here. This 2 means you were the last child, I think. And the 1 means you were a first child. And then the 4 means you were a middle of many. So if I have a 4 in this, it doesn't mean I have more child order than the person who responded with a 1. That makes absolutely no sense. Same with like religion. If 1 is Buddhist and 2 is Muslim and 3 is Christian and 4 is whatever, the person with a 4 doesn't have more religion than a person with a 2. It doesn't make any sense. They're categorical, and so you'd use logistic regression to predict those outcomes. Let's go to regression. Let's start with binary. That's a little easier to understand. And I don't ever work with logistic regression with binary outcomes because I hate them. I only do them on projects that I didn't collect the data and I didn't design the model. So I have some experience, but I'm not an expert in it. So if someone knows better than me, then feel free to speak up. Binary, the dependent variable has to be binary. So something like gender. We're going to predict gender because that's the only binary variable I have. And we're going to predict gender with age because we learned that age is related to gender at BYU. And there's an option here in your covariates to say what is categorical. Age is not categorical, but if I threw something in here like child order, which I can, I would then say child order is categorical, and so it'll treat it that way. That's important. You don't want to throw in a categorical variable and then not say that. And then we'll hit OK. And what we find, there's a lot of tables here. Let me find the one I'm looking for. Scroll down, scroll down. Here it is, the very bottom. There's also an R-square here we can look at, but I'm going to jump straight to the very bottom. And we can see that in the SIG column, there are some significant effects. There's one significant effect, and that's age, which says that age does predict gender. How does it predict gender? Well, we see a negative coefficient here. Let me go find out who's 1 and who's 2. I go to my variable view, go to gender, and I see here male is 1, female is 2. Okay, so we have a negative effect. So as age increases, gender decreases, meaning the older you are, the more likely you are female, actually. Male. How to do that? 2. I gotta write this down. 1 is male, 2 is female. As your age increases, you should be male. There we go. Okay, so as your age increases, you're more likely male, which we realize is true here at BYU because you come back after your mission, you're 22 already, you're starting your freshman year. So that's how that works. And that's a relative to female. It's not a direct slope, it's a relative to female, it's a stronger likelihood that you will be male if you're older. Whereas child order makes no difference if you look at the SIG column. We'll do last one with multinomial logistic regression. Multinomial. This is a little bit funnier. This is when you have a dependent variable that's logistic, but has multiple categories. It's not just binary. It's like child order would be a good example, where there are many different groupings. What factors predict child order? Factors would be your categorical variables, like let's throw gender in there. We know it doesn't have an effect, but we'll throw it in there. And then we'll throw in something like these last 3 as covariates. Frequency of use, let's do it. That's a covariate. Anything that's age, oh, did I not throw that in there? Yeah, that should be in there. And age, in this case, is a covariate. It's continuous. Only the categorical would go here in factors. I have that listed as a scale variable. Whoops. Oh well, I'll fix it later. You'd hit OK. And again, scroll down to the very bottom, look at the parameter estimates. And what this tells you is, look at this SIG column, which things impact your child order. And we find that, excluding the intercept, because we don't care about the intercept, enjoyment has a significant effect on child order. What is that significant effect? This is a little confusing, so bear with me. You'll notice we have child order here, and we have 1, 2, 3 possible categories. The fourth category is not included. It's the reference category. It is the point against which we compare all other things. In this case, I think that's last child. Last of many? I can go check. Child order, right here. Middle of many is last. Okay. So this is everything compared to middle of many. Okay, go back. So compared to middle of many, the more you enjoy an increase in enjoyment is less likely associated with child order 1, which is first child, I think, or only child. You're less likely to enjoy using software if you're an only child versus if you're a middle of many, our reference category. It's very confusing. That's how it works. We'll look at a couple others. Age. No significant effect. Frequency, minor effect. This says you're more likely to use Excel more frequently if you're not. If you are the only child versus if you're the middle of many. See, it's all relative to the reference category. And you can select that reference category. So let me go back to it. And I can say reference category is first category, or a custom one, number 3, or something like that. So I can do compared to the only child, tell me what everything is. And you'll see all of these will change. Yep. And now enjoyment has nothing to do with it. But usefulness does. So the reference category is very important. Usually if you have an other category, you'd throw that in as the reference. So versus anything else, if you're this, you're more of that, something like that. I know that was exceptionally confusing. Just remember, whenever you look at the estimates in a logistic regression, it's in reference to the reference category. It's all comparative. Yeah, a pivot point.
Which is why in engineering we'll use 3, for example, on 5.2 figure. So your sign has direction, right?
Right.
Your sign tells you if you're below the middle, you're more or less likely.
Exactly.
So it's a nice pivot point.
Yeah, that doesn't. If you know you're going to use a logistic model, yeah, 3-point scale is not a bad idea. Cool. Yes.
So in the covariance, it has to be continuous, and then in the variables, it's dichotomous, right?
Oh, in covariance versus factors? Yeah. So let me throw this up again. So you would throw in the factors area anything that is nominal. Nominal. Anything that has values that don't increase the trait with an increase in the number. And anything that's covariate would be something that is the other thing that does increase the trait with the value. As long as I'm here, I'm going to go fix gender. Gender. That sounds terrible. I'm going to fix gender. It's nominal. There we go. Cool. All right. Yep, saved it. And now I'm going to do some one-on-one help. I'm going to take care of remote people real quick, and then do one-on-one. We break for lunch, and then we come back here at 2. I have a key to lock this door, so if you want to leave your stuff, you're more than welcome to do. Both doors will be locked. If you want to get back in and I'm not here, I'll be back by about 1-ish. I'm going to go out to lunch with whoever wants to go out to lunch, and we'll be back around 1 with the key. Before that, does it? If you don't know where to go to lunch, come see me. We'll talk about that. Okay, and we're good. Remote people, I'm going to come hang out with you for a sec.
Where are you going?
The local BYU agents, is the Cannon Center still under construction?
No.
No? Yes! We're going to the Cannon Center for lunch. So, yay! There are other good places, but that place is close and I hate walking because it hurts my feet. Okay. So, let's see. It's just next door, across the street. We'll walk there. Let's see. Logistic, yes. Can you please explain classification table in logistic? I don't know. So Gaurav, I'm answering your question at the moment. Can you please explain the classification table? Let me see if I can. It would be in the binary, right? Let's see, in the binary logistic. No. Here. Nope, that's child order again. Where'd it go? This one? Dependent category. Okay, here we are. Classification table. This one. Oh, thank you. Block 1, classification table. Here we go. If I had to guess what this was, and I am guessing, it would be the predicted group membership based on what we have. So if we had to, based on actuals. So the model of, what do we use? Child order predicts gender as 1, male. We're able to predict male gender 94% correct with this model. We're able to predict female gender not very accurately, 28% with this model. That's how I think it should be read. Cool. Yes. So I hope that helps, Gaurav. Cool. All right. Anyone else remotely have questions before we break for lunch? I'm going to turn off the recorder and it'll post to YouTube. Cool. Thanks, guys. I'm going to log off and then I will call you all again at around 2 o'clock Mountain Time. That's in 2.5 hours. Please, I hope it works this time. Yay. Okay. Thanks, guys. Bye. And we'll hang up. And